Imagine waking up years back in time. Imagine opening your eyes and the world you know, your bed, your phone, on the nightstand, the quiet hum of air conditioning has vanished. Instead, you're lying on the hard ground, dirt pressed against your skin, your wrists bound in iron. You look up, and the sun is burning down on you like fire. Around you, men and women bend their backs, in rows of tall cotton, sweat dripping from their faces, and towering above them, watching with cold eyes, are white men on horses. Rosie was confused. She blinked, once, twice, hoping the picture in front of her would change, hoping she would wake back up in her room, in Atlanta, where her life made sense. But the sting of the sun on her face didn't fade, and the weight of the shackles on her wrists pulled at her arms. This can't be real, she whispered. Move! A voice barked. A tall man, broad, his skin pale and sunburned, yanked her up by the arm. His eyes were hard, his jaw set. She would learn his name later. Richard Hale. For now, he was just a nightmare come alive. He shoved her toward the rows of curtain, where other black people walked silently, their heads down. Just last night, life had been normal. Rosie was 36, a proud mother, a wife, and the owner of a thriving boutique that she'd built from the ground up. Her husband, David, was supportive, or so she thought. They had 2 children, Ella, who is 10, and James, who is 7. They were the center of her world. That evening had been quiet. The kids were spending the weekend with David's mother. David himself had left earlier, saying he had paperwork to finish. Rosie had cooked a small dinner, scrolled through her phone, and finally crawled into bed, tired but content. That was the last thing she remembered. Now she was here, being shoved into a line of workers. The cotton plants stretched endlessly, sharp leaves scraping her arms. The air smelled of sweat and soil. Pick, Richard ordered. His voice was sharp, the kind that carried no mercy. Rosie's fingers trembled. She reached for the plant, the tiny thorns pricking her skin. Pain shot through her hand. This isn't happening, she told herself, tears burning at the corners of her eyes. It can't be happening. But then she saw the whip. Thomas Reed, another overseer, cracked it against the ground. The sound made her stomach turn. She bent her head and peeked. Hours dragged by. The sun burned her skin, her back ached, and the fear inside her grew heavier. Every scream she heard when someone else was struck with the whip told her this was no dream. That night, in the cramped shack where the women were harder to sleep, Rosie met Clara, a woman with tired eyes, who whispered, "Best, keep your head down. Do what they say. It's the only way." Rosie noticed that the others rarely talked to one another. But Rosie wasn't built to accept this. She was used to fighting for her place in the world, used to building from nothing. And yet, when Richard Hale pulled her aside days later, his hands rough, his voice low and threatening, her strength crumbled. He forced himself on her, and she couldn't stop it. The violation left her hollow, sick, and unable to understand how her life had turned into this living hell. Each night she lay awake on the hard floor, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, whispering her children's names. Ella, James. Would she ever see them again? The days blended into each other. Work, hunger, fear. Every time she closed her eyes, she begged to wake up back in her own life. But morning always came with the same sun, the same dirt, the same chains. And the question grew heavier in her mind. Was she trapped here forever, or would she somehow find her way back to her real life?